The Honorable Mark DeWitt, Chairman, and members of the Hawkins County Board of Commissioners regular session met this 24th day of July 2023. Resolution of reference making appropriations to nonprofit charitable organizations of Hawkins County, Tennessee for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30, 2024. Whereas Section 5-9109 Tennessee Code Annotated authorizes the county legislative body to make appropriations to nonprofit charitable organizations, and whereas the Hawkins County Board of Commissioners recognizes the various nonprofit or charitable organizations located in Hawkins County have great need of funds to carry on their nonprofit charitable work. Whereas funds shall herein be appropriated to promote the general and public welfare and to protect the citizens of Hawkins County. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Hawkins County on the 24th day of July 2023, appropriate funds as follows. Be it further resolved that all appropriations enumerated in sections 1 through 8 on the attached listing of contributions without contracts are subject to the following conditions: that the nonprofit charitable organizations to which funds are appropriated shall file with the county mayor's office and the county clerk a copy of an annual report of its business affairs and transactions and the proposed use of the county's funds in accordance with rules promulgated by the Comptroller of the Treasury. Such annual report shall be prepared and certified by the Chief Financial Officer of such nonprofit organization in accordance with TCA Section 5-9-109C. That said, funds must only be used by the named nonprofit charitable organization in furtherance of their nonprofit charitable purpose, benefiting the general welfare of the residents of the county. That it is the expressed interest of the County Commission of Hawkins County providing these funds to the nonprofit charitable organizations on the attached listing to be fully in compliance with the rules of the Comptroller of the Treasury and Section 5-9-109 of Tennessee Code Annotated, and any and all other laws which may apply to county appropriations to nonprofit organizations, and so this appropriation is made subject to compliance with any and all of these laws and regulations. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately upon passage. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
A motion from Commissioner Roach, second from Commissioner Barker. Any questions or discussion? Mr. Maddox.
Mayor, Eric probably had time to answer this one. I was done a couple of years ago or last year in the Clinch Valley Fire Department. How much was credit card use and did they pay the firemen to actually gas and things like that?
That report's available on the Comptroller's website. I don't have that figure off with me today. I hate to even speculate, take a guess at it.
Anything further, Commissioner Bennett?
I'd like to make a motion. We hold off on this one till the next budget meeting, or Eric can come up with it, and we can discuss it on that right there, if that's okay.
On all contributions.
Do we have to all do 2 to 1, or how can we do it, Mike?
Mr. Maddox, no nonprofit on here is eligible if they don't satisfy all the requirements. So if Clinch is out of compliance, that money would be held. When you grant that today, you put the appropriation in the budget, but I do not expend it unless they're in full compliance. So if that department ceases to exist or does not turn in everything that they have to, that contribution is held by the mayor's office.
But at that time, they got so much money they spent. What's the difference between?
No, that's what I'm saying. They don't get a penny until they satisfy everything. No payments made until they turn in everything.
Well, did they reimburse the county? What was their note? And they paid?
I don't think there was any reimbursement to the county. I believe the actual theft proved was under $1,000 if I remember correctly. But like I said, I hate to speculate on the fine.
That's all right.
Okay, so you made a motion or no? I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Okay. Motion is withdrawn. Any other questions? Okay, hearing seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. Mr. Barrett, okay.
14 yes.
All right, that resolution carries. On to 2023-0709, introduced by Commissioner Roach.
And Mr. Chair, once I read this in, I'd like to have the first shot of speaking, please. To the Honorable Mark DeWitt, Chairman and members of the Hawkins County Board of Commission in regular session, met this 24th day of July 2023. Resolution to reference approval of appropriations for the 2023-2024 fiscal year budget. Be it resolved, the attached resolution be passed, making appropriations to the various funds of Hawkins County as per the attached budget documents. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
A motion on the floor from Commissioner Rhodes. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Barker. Discussion. Commissioner Rhodes, did you say you want to speak?
Yes, as the sponsor of the motion, I think.
Okay, go right
ahead
ahead.
and begin. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just kind of want to give a flyover of the budget the way that it is, and I may, Eric, ask for you to help clarify some figures as we go along. So, as you remember, last year we asked for a 15-cent property tax increase, which would have netted us as a county about $1.8 million approximately. That's not to the dime. So what happened is, because our property values have been going up at the rate that they've been going up, the Board of Equalization at the state of Tennessee looked at our ratio. So what happens is, we are on a 5-year reappraisal cycle, whereas private businesses are on a 1-year reappraisal cycle. And so if my property, if the value goes, and Eric, please jump in and correct me, because I think I've got this right. If my property goes up in value because of the market, but that 5-year reappraisal doesn't catch me, I'm paying taxes on a value that the county has recognized, but that the market is steadily climbing. So I'm actually getting a pretty good deal. The value of my property is going up, but I'm paying taxes on whatever my property was appraised at 5 years ago. Right?
Correct.
However, because of that, we get kind of it's kind of a discount in a way. With personal property on business tax, they don't get that. So the Board of Equalization looks at that ratio, and they set it so that it makes it fair to business owners. So what happens is, our ratio can change, and it can determine how much of our tax rate we're able to recognize through revenue. Our ratio was the highest that it's ever been this year that we have on record.
Correct.
What was that ratio, Eric?
I knew you were about to ask that.
I believe it was 61.
61, I think.
The ratio is the reduction. What we were left with is 0.6921.
There you go. And historically, when you and I have talked before, it has been much lower than that. I mean,
The worst we had seen previously was in the 80s.
In the 80s.
High 80s.
So what that did, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, is that 15-cent property tax that we passed last year. We did not know this was going to happen. We found out this was going to happen right before we started budget season. And when that came down, that pretty much, with the exception of $150,000 or $200,000, wiped out that 15-cent property tax increase. Now, 2 years from the date that the Board of Equalization sets that ratio, they reevaluate. So 2 years down the road, we could not be hit as hard. We don't know. It depends on what property values do. It could be worse. So what I guess I present all that to say that this year we were able to realize that 15-cent property tax increase, and our actuals are coming out okay. What are we going to pulling from fund balance now, Eric, for this fiscal year?
Bear with me just 1 second. Showing $50,000 right now.
$50,000 from fund balance this year. But
Basically a wash.
yeah, we're basically breaking even. So our tax increase last year, ladies and gentlemen, it worked. We broke even. That tax increase is not going to count this year. We are projecting a deficit of
$2,452,681.
So what we are doing is we are putting forward a budget right now that does not have an adjustment in revenues, but does have an increase in expenditures. Now, I didn't go back and I didn't run the exact percentage of expenditures, but there are uncontrollables that we don't have control over. Well, office holders got a raise based on Tennessee Code Annotated. The state gave them a raise. Our insurance went up for the county significantly. The cost of doing business for local government that we cannot control went up this year more than we projected. As a matter of fact, when Commissioner Morrell, I'm glad you're here tonight, made a motion last year to increase the taxes higher than what we actually had asked for. We'd asked for 15, and I can't remember what he said. We were here. If we could have seen, looked ahead, Commissioner Harrell, and we had done it then, we would have been, nobody knew. So with all that said, we are projecting to pull $2.4 million from our fund balance. We're projecting a 93% collection rate on property tax collections. We'll probably come in higher than that. It won't be as bad as 2.4 million. But I just want you to understand that our expenditures have gone up significantly and our revenue is not changing. And as I said last year, if you do that year after year after year, you can only take from your savings account so much until your savings account no longer exists. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to lay out the situation that we're in. And hopefully, if we decide to pass this budget as is, I'm not super happy with it. But next year, it's going to require twice the amount of work to make sure that we can get it balanced. It is going to be balanced. It's just going to be balanced from fund balance. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'm finished.
Okay.
And if I'd be willing to ask any questions that I can
Thank you,
answer.
Commissioner Rhodes. Commissioner Thacker?
Well, I watched the budget process at home, but on the 2.4 million, you said, Jason, they took about the budget from undesignated fund balance?
Yes, sir.
I was wondering that roughly, what, 0.7% of a penny was going to be a tax increase?
So, Mr. Thacker, right now, the tax levy is the next resolution. So we've not done that yet. That's coming up in just a minute. But to answer your question, is okay, Mr. Chair, because I'm a little bit off topic if I
Go
talk
right
about
ahead.
this next resolution. So what happened, we put a 0.7 of 1 penny tax increase to our current tax rate, which per $100,000 of assessed value is going to cost the taxpayer $1.75 a year. Okay, so my property is valued at $144,000. It's going to cost me $2.50, I think, something like that, a year for this tax increase, this 0.7 of a penny that we're allocating to the highway department because we fell under maintenance of effort. And if no one, and I didn't always know what maintenance of effort is. Maintenance of effort is a Tennessee Code annotated requirement that once you allocate a certain amount of dollars to certain departments, such as highway, solid waste, education, sheriff's department, once you allocate a set amount of dollars, you can't go below that, and we did. We dropped below it. So what happens if we don't make up that maintenance of effort, we lose $70,000 in grant money, and we will be penalized $70,000 by the state for not meeting maintenance of effort for the highway department. So the only thing that 0.07, that 0.7 of a penny is going to do for us is make sure that we don't lose $140,000 through grants and through penalties. Am I correct on that area?
Yes, I just wanted to add one more thing. The reason that we fell under was due to the devaluing of the penny because of the ratio, and then it was not going to leave us eligible for the state improved tax money, or grant money there. So not only would we lose that money, but we would be ineligible for additional grant monies coming forward, which I believe Mr. Jones have discussed. We anticipate to be in the millions.
We certainly don't want to lose tax dollars.
Yeah, and they'll penalize you fuel tax
We don't
per
want
dollar
that.
if you fall below.
My
that.
question was, why wasn't that, what would that bring in roughly $84,000? Why wasn't that just taken out of undesignated fund balance? I mean, that's not hurting it that much more when you're taking 2.4 million out,
So this, ma'am,
rather than have a tax increase.
Mr. Thacker, I appreciate the point, and you know, with the amount of fund balance that we have, we're actually doing fairly decent right now. However, it's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts. What we're projecting right now is a bigger cut than we had hoped. Cut in terms of we're bleeding out our fund balance. We're not going to end up taking 2.4 million when everything comes out. Okay, it's going to be a lot less than that. But I don't feel good about knowingly continuing to rob from our fund balance, knowing that we're going to have to make that up in the future. And whatever we take from that fund balance, the deeper we get into that red, the more we're going to have to respond in the future to fix that problem. And once again, to bring notice, Commissioner Harrell, he hit it on the head last year. So what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that we fix our revenue side so that in the future we don't have something like a 38% property tax increase that Greene County had just about 2 weeks ago. 38%. And their penny, by the way, brings in $220,000 per penny. Ours brings in $119,000. So if we don't make small incremental changes as we go, we're going to find ourselves making knee-jerk reactions and ending up with a $40 addition to a wheel tax. I'm not okay with that. Conservative spending and conservative revenue means that you don't shoot for the stars. I don't want to tax anybody to death by any means. But at the same time, we have to understand that we're living in an inflationary economy. And in the inflationary economy that we are in, the local government doesn't cause the inflation. We're a victim of it. And we have employees that work for the Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Lawson, that go and try to buy a loaf of bread, the same loaf of bread with the however much money it cost them last year, and they're finding they can't buy the same loaf of bread this year. So we've got to be able to fix our expenditure side, but we also have to address that revenue side too. 0.7 of a penny is, like I say, $1.75 a year per $100,000 of assessed value. It's very, very small amount. And I'm not in favor of a major tax increase. But we do have to be mindful of the fact that if we do this year after year, we're going to be back in a position like we were before. So, Mr. Thacker, I appreciate your questions, and I think you're making good points. I just happen to disagree with you now, sir.
Well, I certainly don't want to lose grant money for any department, whether it be sheriff or highway department or any other. But I'm going to amend this to take that 7% of a penny and move it into undesignated fund balance.
That would be amending the next.
That's the next resolution, Mr. Thacker.
Do what?
That would be the next resolution.
Okay. That's the one you're setting the tax base on.
Well, what we're voting on now, Mr. Thacker, is the budget, that $70,000 plus or minus is
Well, I
in the
know-
budget, and where it comes from is in the next resolution.
Yeah, I know 40, 41, 42, or 44 in this one. This resolution is for the highway department is. That's the reason I'm doing it, or saying this on this resolution.
Both documents would have to match each other. They would both be altered.
Okay.
Is that all, Mr. Thacker?
Yeah.
Anybody else with a comment or question on the budget? All right, hearing done, let's go ahead and vote.
Yes, 4 no.
All right, motion carries. On to the next resolution, 2023-0710, fixing the tax levy for the 2023-24 fiscal year. Commissioner Roach.
Give me just a second. To the Honorable Mark DeWitt, Chairman and members of the Hawkins County Board of Commissioners regular session met this 24th day of July 2023. Resolution of reference fixing the tax levy for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. Be it resolved, the attached resolution be considered fixing the tax levy at $2.3247 per $100 of taxable property. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
A motion from Commissioner Roach, second Commissioner Britton. Now, do we have any discussion? Mr. Thacker, would you like to bring your point back up? Or?
Well, I mean, I still would like to take that and put it under undesignated fund balance. You know, if I need to make an amendment to this resolution.
So, Mr. Thacker, Mr. Chair, may I, sir? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Then would you like to make an amendment that the tax rate, it's .023177 is what it's set out now, is that correct, Harry?
2.317, is that correct?
Okay, that's point, so 231.77 is what the tax rate is set at before we added the 0.7 of a penny on top of that. So your amendment would then go back to last year's tax rate, is that correct?
Yeah, that's what we want to do, but not if it was going to affect the highway department, we were going to lose grants.
I don't believe it would affect the highway department. I mean,
We would just have to
pull
pull it from fund balance.
Well, that's what I'm saying, you know.
Let Eric explain.
Yes, sir.
You got to watch how you word that, because you're flirting with how they word that, taxing for one purpose and using for another. So if you want the tax rate to still be at 2.3177, then you need to shift that 0.7 of a penny over to highway from the original tax rate, bringing down general fund, which will amend that and then reduce general fund's balance, but you're putting the pennies in the highway to begin with.
So, Mr. Thacker, your motion would be to move that 0.7 from, correct me, highway,
Leaving it in the
leave
highway.
it in the highway,
Actually pulling it from
Pulling
general
it from
fund
general.
to get to the same tax rate as last year with still funding the highway at the increased level.
Still fund the highway department, but pull it from undesignated fund balance.
okay, is that in the form of a motion?
Yes.
Okay, we've got a motion on,
I'm willing to do that, we're not, Josh, I'll put these up here so they can.
okay, I'll remember, Joe.
All right.
Okay, is there a second?
Eric said what I was going to say.
Is there a second?
That's what was going to say.
Second by Commissioner Alvis. Is there any discussion on Mr. Thacker's amendment? I'm just asking. That involves.
Mr. Thacker, are you
I gotta get
comfortable with
right
me
down.
helping Nancy with the wording? Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Rhodes.
He said he's comfortable with me helping with the wording of the resolution.
Commissioner Rhodes.
I need to get that and have it announced, please.
So I might just say, Mr. Thacker, that if we do this year, then we'll still have to address it next year because it will still have to go into the maintenance of effort for the next budget. So when we come back next year, we'll still have to address making sure that they're meeting their maintenance of effort, whether we pull it from general fund or whether we do it for the tax increase. So we're going to be back doing this again. If we pull it from fund balance this time, we'll be back doing this again. I just want to make that clear.
All right, Commissioner Gibson.
This is more for Mr. McCann. In the budget committee, we talked about that there was a specific reason for maintenance of effort that we were having to add that 0.7%. Will just moving this from the general funds like this, will that still protect the maintenance of effort?
It will. It'll solve the maintenance of effort of the highway. What it'll not do is not fix anything for the general fund, so it'll farther drive that deficit up the general fund. So you're sacrificing the general fund to fix the highway. But yes, it will fix the highway.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Commissioner Palmer.
Could we move any money around in the highway department to take care of this issue? We allocated $250,000 for payroll and pay increases. Could we take some money out of that and put it toward maintenance of effort?
No. The reason being, the highway maintenance of effort is the 5-year running average on local revenues. So you can do anything you want to the expenditure side. Our problem is we're violating our revenues locally because of the ratio and the decreased value of the penny. So you can make any adjustments you want on the expenditure side, but it will not alleviate the problem of maintenance of effort.
For this year alone? It would fix it for this year and not next year, correct?
I'm not sure I understand the question. If you fall below this year, you'll be penalized this year. You'll be penalized dollar for dollar of what you fall below maintenance of effort with your gasoline tax. You'll also be ineligible for the grants.
But if we
Every
take-
year, I have to recalculate your 5-year average based on the most recent 5 years.
But if we take the money out of the allocated $250,000 out of the budget that we just passed, take the money out of that, would that not free that back up into the general fund?
It would free it back up in the highways fund balance on the expenditure side, but it still doesn't do anything on the revenues, which is where our problem is.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, we're going to vote on Commissioner Thacker's motion.
I need to restate that motion so we can get it in this.
I'm working on it right now, I'm sorry. I'm typing as fast as I can type. On a cell phone calculator.
I know a good joke.
Okay, so the tax levy resolution, the cleanest way to do it is to amend the general fund amount from the current proposed 0.9303 to 0.9233. And that will in effect bring the tax rate back down to the old 2.3177 while leaving, sorry. My apologies.
Basically, all you're going to have to say is we're going to amend the proposed tax rate for the general fund, which is in here at 9303
9303.
to 9. Yeah, go ahead.
.9233.
Wait a minute. I've got 9233, what was the first one?
The original was .9303. So from that to .9233.
Thank you.
Okay, which keeps the tax rate the same as it was last year.
Making the tax rate to.
Making the total tax rate 2.3177.
Thank you.
You're
The
welcome.
tax rate would be the same as was last year.
Exactly.
You'd just be taking this from the undesignated fund balance rather than having.
Okay, we've got a motion to amend 2023-07-10 and a second. Any further questions on that? Okay, hearing none, let's go ahead and vote. Oh, yes means going back to last year's tax rate and not adding the 0.7 of a cent. Commissioner Palmer, Commissioner Maddox.
Five yes, 9 no.
Okay, so that motion fails. So we're back to adding that 0.7 of a cent, not 0.7, but 7/10 of a cent.
Leave it just like it was, right?
Yes.
Yes, like it was presented. All right, we got a motion from Commissioner Rhodes, second by Commissioner Britton. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's go ahead and vote.
How much tax is going to go up for the vote for this?
0.7 of a cent.
It's $1.75 per $100,000 assessed back per year.
10 yes, 4 no.
All right, motion carries. Thank you all. There's some great discussion in that. I really appreciate you all taking an interest in doing that. And we'll be available in the office to answer questions from now on, whatever you have.